This short video is about docks in Trainz, and the first point I want to make is that when you open a new grid in Surveyor, that it's at zero height. Now zero height is sea level, so therefore if you start building here on this, then if you want to have docks and you build them on this level, this height, then the sea is going to be below sea level, which can be the case in some regions of the world, but is a bit daft when you're doing docks in most situations. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the height of the land up to 5 meters, and I'm just going to do that very quickly by making a large radius and just making, now this is just a practice just to show you the sort of effect that that I want to achieve when making docks. So I'm just going to make about half of the space here, half of this area. I'm going to make that about 5 meters high, and I think it's pretty uniform. Now let's run it along the back there, bring it up to height so you can see, and then we've got ground here at 5 meters height, which is fairly reasonable for the top of a dockside where ships can tie up. But of course it still means that this area over on the right is at zero height, which is sea level, the level at which the water wants to come in at. So I need to, as it were, cut into that to lower that so that I've got a dock basin. So I'm lowering that just in this example by 5 meters, so that I've got a 10 meter differential between the bottom of my docks. I'm just going to push in there, bottom of my docks, and the land on which they are built, the surface of the land on which they're built. And I'm doing this because I want to show how my dock sets, I believe, should be used. I'm just going to bring that sensitivity right down, because what I want to do here now is, before I put any models in whatsoever, I want a situation where the top crosshairs on the terrain is at plus 5 meters and the next ones out are at minus. So although this can take a while, it's essential to get a consistent situation all the way along the coastline on which you want to build docks. And you'll see that using my sets, and you'll see how that will work as I move through this video. So let's go in there as well. So I'm trying deliberately to create something at an angle to the grid, because it's very easy to make docks, I think, which are at right angles to the grid here, but these are at 45 or something different. So let's really cut into the earth here, dig our docks, and make sure we're, now I'm concentrating on the crosshairs, because what I want to do is to make the next, between the bottom of the dock at minus 5 meters to the top of the dock at plus 5 meters, the width or the length or the diagonal of one of these grids, in 10 meter grids in Trainz. So having done that with some of the points, I'm now going to make sure I've got 5 meters high, because if you look at docks, the land at docks is pretty flat. Now of course what this does mean is any land beyond here, for example if I had terrain going up at the back of a fairly shallow docks, let's move it up to 10 meters, and let's make a big area that I'm going to affect. So if I wanted rising ground, and obviously this isn't prototypical because I'm just putting a 10 meter high bump in the ground behind the docks, but I'm basically terraforming the grid first before I build the docks. And this is really important, I think, because in that way you can, building the docks is going to be so much easier. And I just want to bring that radius down, because all I want to affect here are these crosshairs. So again, I'm looking to achieve that sort of effect, and I'm looking to achieve it so between the edge of one grid square to the edge of another, there's going to be an angled piece at with 10 meter height differential. And I've chosen 10 meters, which is what, 34 feet as an average for docks. Okay, so having done that, I'll now bring in some of my dock elements, and what I've done is I've created dock walls which have been available on my website, 1 to 5, and these were creating a sort of a generic concrete top, or cobbles that were related to one of the textures already available in Trainz. But I've made my own cobbles texture, which is related to my railway track that runs in cobbles for docks. And now I've made these in order to match that. Now, looking at that, that looks like a 45-degree angle, and no apologies in this demonstration just to do that, because I just want to show you how straightforward it can be. Okay, so I'm going to use I've got 5 new sets that I'm going to be releasing. 6 to 10, 1 to 5 was my previous set, and these are made up of various components, which that's 1, and I'm just looking here, I think I want 2 of those. Those are 45-degree inners, that's a 45-degree inner angle inside the dock face, and then I've got a 90-degree outer. Now because these are, and then we've got another 45-degree inner there, and because these are all, I'm just checking here because I can see another bump which I haven't picked up, and it's there we are. And as I say, because all of these are scenery items, I can adjust the height, but I can't set them to an absolute height. So I'm working from the base height is going to be the bottom of the dock, which will always be 10 meters below whatever height you have the dock. So if you are building a layout and building a route, and your ground height is, say you're using something like, I use Trainz Dem, which gives me the exact topography of any particular site around the world, and I use the digital elevation data in that. It creates the terrain of my landscape. So that could be 5, it could be 6, 7, 8 meters whatsoever, but usually the sea height is going to be at 0. Ordnance datum, that's at Newlyn in Cornwall. Okay, so we've got these pieces in. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise them 10 meters. Now we've got a problem there because this is going up, here we go, 8, 9, 10. I'm not happy with that. I think what I did was I held down the shift key by mistake. So without holding down the shift key, it's at -5, -4, 2, 1, until it's at, I've got 10 meters, you just saw there, and then I'm going to turn that around. Now you'll see that these aren't pivoted on their centers. These are pivoted, in fact this one you can see is pivoted. It's rotating around the front edge, a point midway along that edge there, and the reason for that is because I want it to sit on this height here, the minus, let's zoom in, the -5 meter height. I want it to sit on that and cover, always we've got to cover these angled bits of terrain. Now of course we can't tuck terrain underneath itself, we can't move these squares underneath, so you're never going to get a vertical wall in Trainz. If you put that up at 100 meters and that at -100, you're still going to get an angle. So there's no way of avoiding that, certainly none that I've found. So let's just move that round until we've got about, and top down is a great way of looking at this. 2732, I want 270, don't I? That's correct. It's a 90 degree, and then I'm going to move this in so that it sits. I think I can move it into this close, right on top of that 10 meter square. Have to be a little cautious, and there we are. The top here is level with your dock. Now I know there's a slight gap there, so what I'm going to do is just center on that, zoom in and see how close I can get it. But you've got to be gentle, you've got to be careful when you're positioning these, because one incorrect move and the height, let's just check that height, we're still okay, it still says plus 10, because if I was to position one, let's take another one, and this is the problem with using these scenery items, that because you can't set an absolute height, and you see we're getting 4.02, we've got an 02 there, because the height of the ground isn't precisely -5. So let's go back, -5, let's check, make sure all of these are set at there we go, look, there it was. I know this is a laborious process, but once it's done, and it works. So let's try this. Now let's have a look at its height. Now it says it's at -5, and if I take that up to plus 10, so that it would be +5, that is the height of the dockside surface here, not the dock basin, which is down here. However, if I now move it quite casually, oops, it starts climbing, because it takes its height, it's a relative height, and whatever I do, I cannot get it to agree to an absolute height. So I've had to work within the limitations of Trainz in order to do that. So let's try this one here, -4.91. Clearly we've still got bits that are not down to, there we are, look, you can just see the grid just dropping down a fraction, and that's what you have to do. You need to check these. The ones close in to the dock especially, further out doesn't matter because they're not going to affect the dock walls, but in order to use scenery items in this way, you've got to have the precise height. There we are, we're back at the precise height. So now I can lift this up, I'm going to give it +10, which will be at 5 meters. You just saw it appear there. And then what I'm going to do is this is the corner of my dock, and I've deliberately made this as awkward as possible, well, fairly awkward anyway. So I'm going to rotate this round, and it's rotating round, it's actually rotating around an imaginary point about a foot beyond that, because there's a curve there and it has to rotate around the center of the circle. 265, I think it needs to go to where are we, 270, because I'm just doing it in relation to the grid, and I'm going to be picking it there, and it needs to go right in here, and I need to make sure, let's check that. Ooh, it's not in the right place. It's not the height. It's starting to climb the terrain. So let's just make sure that that is definitely there. Look at that. My -5 meter positions there are not precisely done. These ones further out don't matter, but when you're positioning the dock walls, it's absolutely crucial that you get precisely the right position, and it's worth spending time and checking and double checking rather than dashing straight into it. So I think that's just gonna, let right over the top of it. I think I'm in the right place there by the looks of it. And let's just check that height again. Yes, we're okay. So now we've got two pieces of dock wall in place, two scenery items, and now I use the spline, which is going to be dock walls cobbles, and again I'm just going to lay it out down here, and this is the wall at the front here, so I need to move that round like that, and I want to connect it up to this one, and I want to connect it up to this one, and that gives me my nice dock wall. And I then choose my cobbles. See if I can get my right cobbles. I think this is the one. SF.rail-cobbles. Now this is texture, ground texture, and I spent quite a lot of time matching it up with the dock wall. So take the scale right down to match. It's at right angles here, and it's up to you to decide how you want to lay this, whether it's okay to have a junction like that. And although there is a difference in the colouring, the brightness of these cobbles, I've spent very many hours trying to match them precisely to the dock walls and failing. Now this is actually bleeding off down the slope. If we were to look in here down the slope, if I took away it's this slope here that it's running down, but it's hidden by my dock wall top. So let's add a bit more. There we are. And actually you can see it bleeding down on that edge there. And if I just add some more there, well, what I can do is I can change that to, by the best it's going to do 90 degrees, and I can just cover it all over and have it going in the other direction like this. And no matter what I do, I cannot get the exact colour of this to match my dock walls, but I'm prepared to accept that limitation. What it does do is it matches the cobbles on my track mounted in cobbles, and you get this the reason why I've done this, the track in the way it has, is because this is the way it was normally, track in cobbled surfaces was normally laid, with a line of cobbles parallel with the rail, either side of the rail, and then an infill of cobbles, and that then is basically the border between any other cobbles beyond it, which are cut to wedge shapes or whatever. So you can certainly take that, and if I take that over to there, you'll see, well, it's ducking under because of course it's going down the slope, so we need to set the exact height of the track splines, and that's the vertex height, and it's disappeared because it needs to be minus, because we're at 4.8 meters, 5 meters, so we'll go minus 4.8 and bring it back, hopefully. Come back. It's refusing to move. Where are we? There's the other one. And it should be, of course, plus 4.8, not minus, because we want it above the ground, not buried within it. So I was going in the wrong direction. So there we are. Now I'll just put and so this then I think should bring our track back onto the, yes, there we are. And and the reason why I'm dropping it 0.2 of a meter down from the 5 meters of the height is to allow for that effect where you've just got the rails just a little bit proud of the cobbles. In fact, they would have been at the same height as the cobbles, but when I tried to do that, I lost the rails in amongst the cobbles texture. So that's the compromise I had to make. And as I say, with regard to the texture, that is the compromise I've had to make there. Okay, so back to the dock wall. Let's just work on these. Well, I'll just work on these just to demonstrate. Where are we? Here we are. And we're at -5 there, so we can push that up quite happily to plus 10 meters to positive 5 meters. 5, okay. And then I move them over. I need to rotate this, I think, about, it wants to be something, well, it wants to be around the other way, doesn't it? It needs to be losing myself here. Come back, come on, round this way. Move you out a bit. It's still not right. Oh, come on. 210 I think is the next one, isn't it? 70. Well, doesn't have to be exact. After all, very few docks are laid out in such precise angles. And I've been looking at the Vernon Harcourt. Let's just, now we're up the slope there, so that's no good. We've got to come down. Let's just have a look. Ooh, climbing the slope. That's not what we want. And let's try connecting that up. Well, that one's going to go there, and we'll connect the spline up here. There we are. Now, I don't like this. It's the compromise I've had to make. I suspect it's actually something related to the orientation of the terrain, but you can see here how the dock wall is beginning to build up quite nicely, and if I bring in that other 45-degree corner, I've tried to give everything give you a fair bit of flexibility in building your dock, and believe me, once you start using it, you can quite easily, almost by eye, start creating your dock. I don't quite know why that jumped off the tree. The reason why I bring it in as tight as possible is so that I can cover as much of this angled piece, but I'm not going to cover all of it with this. This is the spline again. I think we go this way, don't we? There we are. Now once we've got the corner pieces set, the spline will take the height of the attachment points, and the spline you can set to an absolute height, and here for example I've got it, and there is some, well, sludge built up there. If we were to colour it in, I don't know, what have we got? Let's dot rails, that's cobbles. Oh, take that out. I did find some sludge. You want docks? I think it's under dock surface. Yeah, let's just use that one. I don't know where it's from, but you want to really darken up the inside of the dock. And of course that then gives you a sludge in a dry dock the dock hasn't been filled yet. We're going to put water in shortly. So the ground actually rises there up to the dock wall, and I think that's quite acceptable. If you want to add some other colours in as well, but remember you want to keep them dark and dirty, because there's going to be a lot of silt and mud in a dock. There we are. And it's even bleeding here onto the surface. Well, I've got a way around that, because I've got the surface this here as a spline as well. So if you want to, you can bring in a length of spline next to it and to mask out. Just need to see where that point is and then draw that back. The only thing you need to watch out for is any overlap here, because you will get that sort of flickering effect. So by bringing in the spline points, you can start to mask out any problems there. And then of course, if you're running dock tracking cobbles, let's just put another length of line in there and give it the correct height, and then bring it into position. Here we go, and you can see, where are we? Are we not quite right there? So that immediately tells me that this corner is not in the correct position, the correct height. So let's go back and have a look at that. .13. That's no good. So I'm just going to drag that away. .02. Just drag it back until I find that I'm at the right height here. There we are. And I'm now going to push this back into position, but keep it out a bit. And actually that piece of track there is showing me if I'm going to be, it's actually beginning to climb the gradient. I obviously haven't got some of these cross points correctly positioned, so I should have done that. Double check that, and I want to bring that over there. What height have we got here? Let's make sure our spline heights are correct. There we are, so none of it's going to go marching off down the slope. So I know there's a gap between here and in there, but I'm just trying to demonstrate what you can do. And let's just move the track over a little bit. In fact, what I'll do is I'll add a spline point, make sure it's the correct height, and I'll move it over so as to give us a bit of a curve. Keep it in position there. Okay, so you can see there that we've got a track. Let's stick an engine on it. Pug, very appropriate. Mersey Docks and Harbour Board Pug. And we've got a bit of extra height there, so let's go back to scenery. There's a lot of scenery here, a lot of nice stuff, and a lot of stuff which there's a trawler. It's a bit big, isn't it? But if we can find a little boat rather than a trawler, tug's probably going to be a bit big, yes. These are all from Military Trainz. Absolutely brilliant website, and with the permission I've either removed the flag or motor yacht. Motor yacht's probably a bit big as well, yeah. But what you can do is put in that raised section there, that you can leave something high and dry if your sea level, if you come up higher than the sea level. So if I was to raise that ground a bit there. I'm not going to do it because it's going to throw these off, I think, in quite a significant way, but if I was to raise that up, pile it up so that it was all another up to 1 meter high, well, let's just do that. 1 meter high, and so it's sort of filling up with silt. I'm avoiding the corners because I don't want to do anything that's going to throw them out. But then what I could do is bring in, I'm just looking for a small, these are all quite large, these fishing catch, maybe a bit big, well, not too bad in size. So if I wanted to, I don't think it would do it, I can't angle the fishing catch. That's one thing you can't do, but as a scenery item that will adjust to the bottom, so I could just leave it high and dry there. Let's just make sure it's not actually pushing through the dock wall. And you might think, well, you know, why bother, what's that about? Well, it's because if you want to, you can build a dock, three-sided dock, and have it silted up on the inside to such a degree that the boats actually bottom out. Because if we go to the water and add water, I'm going to do that in a minute, but first of all what I want to do is to edit the environment, because I don't want the colour of the water. What I want to do here is to take the colour of the water right down on the 3 spinners, okay, and then I'm going to add water. I'm not going to adjust the water height. That I think is it's a bit of a trap. Leave it at 0 height. I'll increase the radius slightly. That's maybe too much. I'll keep it at small, and I'll bring some water in. Let's just try and, where are we? There we go. So that is still that is just about beached out on the water, but you can see the height of the water there in relation to the dock. So if I wanted to have this high and dry, I'd need to raise that up to, what did I raise it up to? 1 meter, didn't I? There it is. Well, let's just move the out the way, and let's just remove some water so I can actually see what I'm doing here. I'm going to put it back. Come on, there we go. And let's just do that at 2 meters. There we are. And take that up, move our yacht, our trawler rather, whatever it is, fishing catch, right the way back up. Let's look, make sure it's not actually pushing through, and let's put some water back. Where are we? Add water. There we are. And it's virtually out of the water at the height of the dock. Standing proud there. But any other, if we were to put another fishing catch in, then obviously what we'd want to do, we have to alter this like any other scenery item, we'd put it about that height. So if I move that towards the dock, you can see there that this fishing catch was probably a bit too low there. Let's move it up a little bit. I'm holding down the shift key to raise it so that it's not actually awash. But there we are, and you can see the difference in height between the two of them to give you that effect. So these are then my efforts at making the dock walls more compatible with my dock rails in cobbles and my texture. I can see here, looking at this, that clearly I've still got to do, I've tried to do this quite quickly, and the terrain here isn't precisely, the height isn't precisely correct. This should be at 5 meters, and I think that is what is influencing the texture here. But I can't really see, I don't really want to start chopping it about, but it shows you how important it is to get these heights precisely right. If I follow that one up there to there, because they affect the way in which Trainz draws the ground textures. I don't think I can improve that in any way. I'm just switching between the grid view on and off. I don't think that's made any difference, but what is obvious is that the there it is. If I just colour this in with the ground texture, you can see there that it's influenced by the gradient, and that is what is happening here, I think. So my advice there would be to use my cobbles spline behind these to create a wider apron. I don't want to increase the apron on these models because they just become unwieldy then. But if I was to do this, for example, then you begin to get a better blend of the texture with the dock apron or behind. I'm holding down the shift key so they don't join up. And here, just pull it away so it doesn't overlap. And you can dive in and have a look. We're getting some overlap there. That's where we're getting that flickering. But actually, the look with the textures of the cobbles is much better. And so if I was to continue doing that, you know, you've got a uniform pattern, you've got a uniform effect there, and it begins to disappear. The joins begin to disappear. So our little pug can run happily along over a wide range of cobbles. You can create basins, docks. I'll just show you one other thing which I like about doing it like this modular system, using a 10-meter differential between the dock surface and the basin surface. So if this is at 60 meters, this should be at 50 meters. So I don't know which part of this world that would be in. But it allows you to create a much more, the terrain can go up quite radically from the back of the docks here, though in practice quite narrow docks are fairly rare, although river docks, there are some in Cornwall for the China clay. And once you bring in the water, of course, then you get the real effect of the dock beginning to, it's reflecting off the water there. It's probably a bit much, but I'm not going to start mucking about with the water beyond the colouring, which I try to darken up and dirty up as much as possible. One of the things I wanted to show you as well, just while I'm finishing this video, is that building out a mole, that is an extension, a narrow extension from the dock to protect. If you want it in cobbles, that's great. So I'm going to do I don't know why it keeps going back to there. Let's try and find something. That's a fishing catch. Click on this. Oh no. Undo. That's the one we want. That's what we want. Dock wall 90 outer. There we are. Now let's do 2 of those and let's raise them up. Arise. I held down the shift key. Just go straight up 10 meters. There we are. And this one as well. And rotate it round. One thing I should say is that these are, I'm still working on these dockyard sets. They're not available on my website yet, but they will be within, I would say, within a week. And although they are being beta tested, I'm don't believe there's much more now that I'll be able to do to improve them. I think we're just about there. So that's why I'm doing this video, both to demonstrate how to use them and also to advertise the fact that they're going to be available. Now I'm just carefully moving this one alongside that one, so that we get a circular, semicircular feature. And in our spline, let's just raise that up straight away and stick it over there and connect that into that. There we are, and bring that back. Now of course I could have, I'm not worried that it's buried in there. I could bring another bit, or I could join it up with another bit of angle of a dock wall. And over here, I'll just connect that into there, and then bring this one, hold down the shift key so they don't join up, bring it in and go down, zoom down, make sure they're not overlapping. There we are. And I don't think I've got a lighthouse. Maybe I have. Where are we? Let's try lighthouse. Light boat, light parking. I haven't downloaded any of the lighthouses. Light tower, whatever is that like? Oh gosh. Lighthouse. Oh, there we are. Not bad. Not exactly what I would choose, but there we go. And just like the other, raise it up, grab hold of it. Where are we? Obviously I can't, it's got its height fit. Oh yes I can, yes, there it is. Oh, I can lower it, but I can't raise it. Huh. Okay, so let's move it into the land. It's going to stay down. Oh well, not to worry. Anyway, it gives you an idea if you wanted to stick a lighthouse on the end there, but you'll need to have one, or you need to alter the config of this one to raise it up. And there we are. It's nice with the light rotating. I like that. So there's a lot of possibilities with these dock sets, and I think what I've tried to keep it as simple as possible, but at the same time I've tried to establish a pattern of work which leaves you with, allows you to build a quite complicated dock system, and one which is flexible enough to cater for most situations. Now admittedly I've gone at right angles with the grid here and at 45 degrees here, but with a bit of experimentation you can have all sorts of variants of angle. And where are we here? That's the wrong way. That's the other thing, by the way, and that is that these are you must connect them up in the correct way, because the connection points are not in the center, they're offset to allow for the more weird and wonderful things which I've done with these. Now that's a spline, and it's always that they always seem to have this slightly reverse curve to them. If I was to straighten that up, it's not going to work. Let's just put that up at height. And I mean, frankly, if I wanted to, I could just, it doesn't have to be that straight. Let's bend it a bit and then bend this round a bit. You'll see the repeat of the spline there. It's about every 30 feet, something like that. But I thought that was okay because it gave that sort of dock wall type look to it. So you know, even with the spline, and that can be set at an absolute height. And you can't do 90 degree and 45 degree bends, but you can do some fair bit of manipulation, and by sorting out your terrain behind and then using the spline of just the cobbles themselves to match that. I'm not going to, just to give you an idea. think I can go out a bit further. I'm overlapping a fair bit there. The reason I brought in, I'm concentrating on the cobbles, is because of my track in cobbles. I'm going to add another one of those. I'll hold down the shift key, jump them up to the right height. It actually becomes rather addictive after a while, creating these docks, as I'm now finding to my cost, because I thought I'd finished this video about, oops, let me just bring that back over. There we are. Just holding down the shift key now to make sure it doesn't connect up with the other one. But you see, with a bit of imagination and thought and experimentation, I've still got a bit of, I'd have to go deeper yet, but it's because I haven't sorted this out. That demonstrates why you need to have this part of the grid at 5 meters, and then this part at -5 meters. That will give you the dock terrain that you need. Let's raise those up. There we are. You can see now how that will, if I now bring in my cobbles, it's still affected by some gradient, but we're almost there, and that will make quite a wide back piece to the dock wall. But you don't need to do that. Just set your terrain so that where the dock is going to run is, the top of the dock is going to run is 5 meters, and where the bottom of the dock is going to run is the next one right next to that, right next to that, right next to that, right next to that one. There we go. And you won't go far wrong at all. So it's worth the time and effort getting the terrain in the correct the correct height position. Where are we? There we are. So I'm just using a single grid square to go from the height of the dock to the bottom of the dockside basin. Okay, all very well. I shall be releasing these dock wall sets in about 1 to 2 weeks, so that would be about the middle of July, and you'll be able to download them from my website. If you have any questions, queries or comments about making using these dock wall sets and making your docks, what I'm trying to do is to create a system which is flexible enough and workable enough, so that you can achieve a wide range of docks within Trainz. The only other thing that I should point out is that the 5 sets which I'm going to release use the same textures as the previous 5 sets as far as the dock was, but you shouldn't mix them up. If you're going to make the docks, that there, for example, that mole, you could use a different one if there's no, or if you make a clean break between this type, this texture, and the texture of the mole to show it's been built at a different time in a different way. So my advice is to be cautious about mixing up all of these different types of dock wall. Go for one that that you're happy with, that you like, of the 5 that I'm offering, and of course these are all freeware, so you can download them and use them free of charge from my website. And I hope that there's going to be a lot more docks in Trainz, because I like docks and I think they deserve to have a lot more coverage, and to have some little shunting engines running on the side of the docks like that pug. There we are, those are the other ones that are going to be in these sets as well, and some boats hard up on the mud or floating out there beyond the dock walls, some really big ships. Remember, you can well, I wouldn't say you can go mad, but you can get some big stuff. And military Trainz really helped with all their stuff, and he's released more, so you know, get out there and get the ships floating away in the docks, and give the Trainz something to connect up to, and to transport, and to take away all of the timber, coal, whatever it is you're shipping out. So there we are, the docks systems which I'm offering, and if you have any comments, queries or suggestions, please let me know and I'll aim to answer them. But watch out for these to be released on my website in about a fortnight's time.